thanks so much, Tom. It's such a pleasure to be here with everybody today. I'm really looking forward to sharing some of these amazing stories and messages that I've had the privilege to get from my daughter. First of all, let's see. It's not working. Is it
this way?
Wait, point it that way.
I'll get it started.
Okay, there we go. And then, so, welcome to a history of political journalism. Are we in the right room for that?
Speak into the mic.
Yeah, sorry, I just said welcome to a history of political journalism for, I hope you guys are in the right room. I wanted to start with this because it was kind of a funny story. I spent most of my professional career in public relations, doing corporate PR in New York and Washington for Fortune 500 companies, and that meant my job was to call the media and try to pitch stories to reporters and editors. And one of those people I had to call was this guy who you might recognize, Sam Donaldson, who was well known as being a really big bulldog. He was the head of the White House correspondence. Whoops. That one. And when I had to call him, I was dealing with, of course, somebody who was screening the calls. And when I called, they said, who should I say is calling? And I knew that this was a really key moment, that I better have a good answer if I really wanted to get this story for my client. So without hesitating, and I still to this day don't know why I said this, but in a big booming voice, I said, God is calling. Tell him God is on the line. And mercifully, Sam Donaldson took that call. He ran the story. My client was happy. I was able to keep my job. And I only tell you this story because I think it's kind of funny and very ironic that 30-some years later, it's not going on my end.
Sorry. Trying to get to that little guy. There we go.
There we go. I hope I can control it from here. Am I not? There we go.
You are now.
Okay, I am now. Yay. Okay, 30 some odd years later, I think God is calling me. And if he's not calling me, he's leaving me lots and lots of voicemail messages. These are all messages that I've received in this throughout this process, with the exception of the I love you in the clouds, which would be pretty amazing if that were to happen. But I've received lots and lots of communication. I think we can all relate to this sentiment. But I can tell you, after talking to hundreds of near-death experiencers, that we'll be in the corner eating popcorn with our spiritual guides, looking down on our bodies without any pain. But I agree, I don't think any of us really want to be there when it happens. But I think we all understand that that's part of the human experience. But I think we also are coming to understand that it's not the end of that experience. There are lots and lots of ways that we can communicate with our loved ones and that our loved ones are communicating with us. So what we're really talking about is after-death communication, not to be confused with AC/DC, the band, but ADCs. And that can really mean anything from dreams, visions, song, fragrance. In my case, I get a lot of marijuana in my car when I'm driving by myself. That tells me that Jessica is around. And unfortunately, I have lots and lots of firsthand experience because of my daughter Jessica. And I know Tom alluded to her story a little bit. But for those of you who don't know, she was just really the best kid in the whole wide world. I mean, I can't say that any other way as a mom. And I'm not biased at all as her mom. But she was a junior at collegiate. She was 17 when we kept her home one day from school with a little bitty fever, 101. And the next week, her fever spiked to 104. And we took her to the pediatrician, who proceeded to find an 8-centimeter tumor wrapped completely around her colon. And we went from this beautiful girl in 17 months to this. And there was no communication at this point. She was in an induced coma, on a ventilator, unable to speak. The only time she communicated during this time, there was one exceptional moment on May 12th when she woke up, took off those mitts, and motioned for a pen and a pad, which we kept nearby in case she wanted to try to communicate. And she sat up in bed and she wrote one word on that pad, and that one word was God, which was incredible. But she went back into that coma, and during this time, I really think she was starting to communicate with me prior to her passing. As she was winding down, she wanted me to know what was going on with her, and she wanted to give me a sense of how I should start to look for those signs and messages from her. And she picked a funny way to do it, because as kids, every time we were on a long car ride or a road trip, we would always look for license plates. We'd play the little I Spy game, and we'd try to make out what the license plate said. So when we were in this place and Jessica was winding down, this is the message that I got. Life is short. I'm too tired. And that's just the way it is. Now, I saw all of these, one right after the other, almost like a conversation, right? And I would see them in a way that was compelling and made me take notice. And I mean, people pulling right in front of me, cutting me off in traffic so that I had to pay attention. But what I found amazing was that this communication continued and changed forms many different times throughout this process. A few weeks after this, Jessica transitioned. It was the day that should have been her high school graduation. She wanted to make it to graduation. She made it in hospice, and that very next morning is when she transitioned. And of course, leaving the hospital, complete zombie, I see this, one love. And I'm at a stoplight, and I'm really just trying to be able to make it home. And seeing that message, one love, at that moment was extremely comforting to me. But that's not the most exceptional thing. What was exceptional was the synchronicity that started to happen at that very moment. While I was sitting at that stoplight, I got a text from my son, who was driving in another vehicle with his father, and he sent me a message that said, "Mom, look what I'm looking at." It was the same message, one love, at the very same moment. So I immediately started to think, okay, something's happening here. And I'm not a religious person. I didn't grow up in an organized religion of any kind, never read the Bible, thought it was just in hotel room drawers. But I started to see scripture, and I started to see it everywhere. And the first message that I got was John 14, which I found particularly relevant, that the right verse at exactly the right time. You know, there's, "Don't let your heart be heavy. There are many rooms in heaven. I will make a place for you." That was exactly what I needed to see at that moment. And then I started to realize something funny was happening. If I just thought of something, I would see it. And I was having a conversation with a friend, and I was driving downtown, and I said to her, the hardest thing at this moment is just to accept that Jessica is gone. I just can't really wrap my head around it. I just can't accept it. And this was the car in front of me. Acceptance. Then I started to ask some questions. I started to say pretty typical things that you might ask about a loved one and what's going on with them. And I said, "Where are you, Jessica?" And I'm thinking this in my mind's eye. And when I thought that, I got this answer. Beside you. And then I started to think, okay, well, I want to get some information. I'm going to start asking these deep probing questions and hopefully find out from the universe what I need to know. So after this, I'm in a Starbucks drive-thru, and I place my order, and I'm thinking, I just want to know that you're okay. And as I turn the corner to pay, I get this message, "Totally okay." And not only that, but there's a little bonus, "not of this world." So I thought that was a nice little kicker as well. And then after that, I really started to wonder if I was losing my marbles and wanted to make sure I wasn't just imagining this, that this was really Jessica. And so I pull into a Wawa and I'm pumping gas and I'm asking myself, I really am double daring the universe, which is a scary thing to do. You don't want to do that very often. You might get struck by lightning. But I said, I know I've gotten lots of signs and messages, but I really want to know that this is you, Jessica. And while I'm pumping gas, this car pulls in across from me. It's me. And just to put an exclamation point on that, knowing that I'm stubborn and I'm a little bit of a skeptic, I got a little bit of an ADC for dummies. She really wanted to pound it in. 'Tis me. So I thought that was pretty extraordinary. She was letting me know, yes, Mom, it's really me. And a couple of weeks after that, some friends invited me down to Carytown for a luncheon. And at this point, it was just a couple of weeks after Jessica had passed. I had no interest in even getting out of bed. I had no desire to do anything social. I had no interest in going to be with people or being out in the world. But I agreed to go. They said, it'll be good for you to get out and all of that. So we went to the Daily in Carytown, and there was a big communal table. Probably 20 people were there, and maybe half of them I knew and half of them I didn't. But this woman walked in. And she was really hard to miss. I know this is a little bit of a blurry picture, but this was not October. This was June. And she walked in with this crazy getup, this bone dress, covered in tattoos. And in my mind, she was wearing a neon sign that basically said, pay attention to me, pay attention to me. And she sat across the table from me, a little bit catty corner, and I was chit-chatting to my right with some friends, and I hear someone ask her, so what do you do? And she responds, I'm an embalmer. Now, I've never met anyone in the funeral arts before, but my ears were immediately perked up. And so I was chit-chatting again, listening though, and I heard the follow-up question, what funeral home? And she said Blyle's, which was where Jessica was taken. So like a crazy woman, I'm reaching across the table with my phone in my hand and Jessica's picture on my screen. And I said, excuse me, by any chance, did you happen to take care of this young lady? And she stopped for a minute and she kind of closed her eyes and she said, as a matter of fact, I did. And she said, and this is really weird. This is really strange. We never talk to the families. We don't deal with the public. We're in the basement. She said, I'm the only person there that does what I do. And she said, I get little babies that fall into swimming pools and I hold those babies and I carry them. And when your daughter came into us, we just looked at each other and said, what the duck? And I said, I know, right? Because she knew every scar on my daughter's body. And she said, but she was so beautiful and she fought so hard. So at that moment, of course, I realized how important this is. And the fact that I'm getting a backstage pass from the last person to touch my daughter on this planet. And she was lovely. She showed me some amazing tattoos, her tattoo artwork. And one of them was this beautiful, large bird cage, which took up the majority of her arm. And it's empty because it symbolizes freedom. The bird is flown. She also showed me this beautiful blue lotus flower, which of course means spiritual transformation through the mud and muck of this existence. And then we went outside and we were breaking for lunch. And I was giving her a hug and thanking her with gratitude. And I was so overwhelmed at that moment, but I wanted her to know that I just thought it was awesome to meet her. I was so grateful. And I hugged her for as long as she would let me. And I just said, it's awesome. And the license plate next to us, outside the restaurant, on the curb, said awesome. So it was like Jessica was saying, yes, Mom, you got the message. So I thought that this was a pretty exceptional wink. And I still have never met anyone else in the funeral arts. Now, as we started to get into the holiday season, a lot of Jessica's friends were calling me and telling me that they were having dreams about her. they were very situational too. One friend who used to do a lot of music festivals and concerts with Jessica called to tell me that she was at a concert and Jessica came up with her beautiful long hair, telling her everything is fine, I'm okay. And she was very comforted by that. And another friend who used to do a lot of outdoor activities with Jessica called and said that they were having a beautiful picnic under a huge oak tree on a grassy hillside. And Jessica said that heaven was more beautiful than anything she could have ever imagined. And that she was watching over all of us. And that gave her a lot of comfort. Now, I was getting pissed off because all of her friends were having these experiences, but I wasn't. And we had made it through that very first Christmas, which was not an easy thing to do because everyone knows the holidays suck when you're missing a loved one. But when we got to the night before New Year's Eve, I kind of had a break. And I literally fell to my knees and I cried myself to sleep. But I prayed, I called out to God, and I said, I just need more. And I wasn't even sure what that meant. Short of holding her or hugging her, I didn't really know what I needed, but I wanted that dream of Jessica. And I literally said, I want to turn the page on this grief, and I want to start the new year fresh and be able to move through this. And so I went to bed very hopeful, and the next morning, I did not get that dream of Jessica, unfortunately. I was pretty upset about it. I was like, rickum frackum, rickum frackum, rickum frackum. But around 3:30 in the afternoon, I got a call from a stranger, somebody I'd never met, who told me that Jessica was communicating with her. Now, that stranger is in this room. Her name is Lauren Sachs. And I had never met Lauren before, but she called to tell me that, and I won't go into the conversation because I say it in detail, I detail it in the book, but it was an exceptional conversation. And this woman had receipts. When we did meet, she had 6 pages of handwritten notes with dates and times and very specific conversations and what she called downloads from Jessica. But a few things that she did say, which were remarkable, was that she said she didn't want to say Jessica was a pest, but she said she was very persistent. And she said, and I promised her that I would reach out to you before New Year's, which was my prayer, right? To start New Year's and be able to turn that page, which I thought was just incredible as far as the timing of all of this. And the other thing, one other thing that she said that I'll mention later too, is that she said she related death as just walking through from one room to another, just like walking through a door from one room to another, which I thought was a pretty amazing thing to say. And there were lots of other amazing things that she said in that conversation, but I hope you'll read them in the book. But Lauren and I started a friendship then that has lasted to this day. We call each other all the time, and I'm texting her signs and license plates and symbols and messages that I get all of the time. But she started to call me too, and she had started asking some really interesting questions. One of the first things she asked me was, did Jessica ever make like the bunny ears peace sign, is what she called it, the bunny ears peace sign. And she said, because I'm seeing her in my mind's eye, but it's a different era, and she's wearing like these John Lennon glasses, and she's got a tie-dyed shirt on and like a headband, and it's like a different era. And I said, I don't know what you're talking about, Lauren. But then I started to look at my pictures, and this is what I found. Exactly what Lauren had described, down to the John Lennon glasses. And then when I started to look at other pictures, I started to see that bunny ears peace sign in almost every picture that Jessica had. It was just not something that I had noticed before. So I think that was pretty exceptional. And then I know that the next biggest holiday that we were coming to was Mother's Day. And I think Jessica wanted me to know that she knew all of the feels that I was going to be feeling that first Mother's Day. So this is what I got. One great love, cry some. She didn't have to worry. I was already crying all day on Mother's Day. And then I was thinking about how much I loved her, and I got, I love you too. And that wasn't even the most exceptional thing that happened on that first Mother's Day. I actually got a Mother's Day card from Jessica. And when I tell people that, they say, how is that possible? It was the year after she passed. And I'm thinking, think about the postage on that. I mean, that's a forever stamp if you ever want to think of one. But I went to brunch with my younger son, and as we're waiting in line, a friend, who was a college friend, lives in Philadelphia, calls me and says, were you in Philly yesterday? And I said, no, why? And she said, because my daughter sent me this. And this is my daughter's name. This is my married name, Jessica Joseph. This was her tag, her artwork, and untouched, surrounded by hearts. And that was amazing. And her grandparents, Jessica's grandparents, lived in Philadelphia, so she would have done this at some point on a visit to her grandparents. But what's even more extraordinary is where my friend's daughter saw this artwork. It's an abandoned place in the middle of the Schuylkill River in Philadelphia called Graffiti Pier. It's illegal to go to Graffiti Pier. You get a citation, a police citation, if you even go out there. But my friend's daughter and her friends wanted to check out the street art. And they found Jessica's artwork in this sprawling place in the middle of another city on Mother's Day. and to me, it was as if Jessica was saying, I'm with you and I'm sending you love today. So to me, that was the Mother's Day card that I needed. And after Jessica passed, I've spent, and this is another reason why the book has taken a while, it's been a minute, but I also felt, and I shared this with Tom, that there were other stories that needed to be included. And those stories didn't happen until the last few years. And I spent about the last 5 years working in advocacy in the colon cancer space with patients and caregivers, 17,000 patients and caregivers as an executive director for a nonprofit. And one of the families that I worked with is this beautiful family, Rahul and Sujartha. Rahul was 16, also with stage 4 colon cancer. And if anybody, I know Tom's familiar with this, but if you know what an ostomy is, this poor kid was getting an ostomy reversal surgery, which he was actually very excited about because it would have given him a better quality of life. And on a 4th of July weekend, I was on the phone with Sujartha for the entire weekend till 2 or 3 in the morning every night because we were trying to figure out 10 days post-op, this poor child was not able to move anything, and his surgical team was saying, if we can't get things going, we're going to have to reverse the reversal. So that was a really scary prospect, and we were trying to figure out anything that he could do. I was beating the bushes with every surgeon we had ever worked with, trying to figure out Reiki and meditation and visualization and chewing gum and walking the hall with the IV pole and what could we do to kind of get things moving. And I wasn't sure where things landed, but we ended up driving home from that vacation, and we pull into Whole Foods to pick up some groceries, and on our way out, I see a sign that I think is for Sujartha. And immediately, I tell my partner, Gus, turn around, that's a message for Sujartha. And this was the message. Now, I don't know what this word is. I don't know the language. But I made him turn the car around. There's a lot of eye rolling involved, but he knows to do what I'm asking at this point. So he turned the car around, I snapped this picture, and I immediately look it up online. And the Quora definition says that it is a Tamil word that originated from Sanskrit that means God's blessing or God's grace, which I thought was beautiful. Now, I didn't want to share this right away. I knew they were probably in the middle of their ongoing health issue. But after a few weeks, I finally reached out to Sujartha and I said, how is our sweet boy doing? Just checking in. And she told me, unfortunately, they did have to go back in and reverse the reversal, which was very devastating. But that Rahul was doing better. He had gained a little weight. He was on TPN, which is the liquid nutrition, and his spirits were a little better and looking forward to going back to school. And then at that point, I said, look, I don't know what your belief system is. I have no idea what your religion is. And I said, but I get a lot of communication from Jessica, and I think I got a message for you. And if you're open to it, I would love to share it with you. And she said, yes, Susie, I would be happy to have you share it with me. I believe in that, and I would love to know what it was. So I sent her this with the little definition because I had no idea if she knew what it was. And immediately she texted me back very excitedly and said, oh my God, Susie, this is unbelievable. Tamil is my mother tongue. This is the language we speak at home. And she said, and to get this message from another mother in this moment when we were in such a dark place, I can't tell you what that means to us. So it was another connection that Jessica was helping to facilitate with someone else to help them. And she's done quite a lot of that lately. So I was suddenly learning about ancient languages that I knew nothing about, but then I was also getting ancient secrets of the universe. As part of my advocacy work, I was out in Denver at a conference, an oncology conference, and I was presenting a poster. And I was staying in a carriage house of someone's Airbnb, and on my way out, after having stayed there a week, not meeting the host, I was leaving to drop off the key and say hi and goodbye, and I meet this extraordinary woman. Her name is Beth Rudin. And Beth was an amazing thought leader at IBM, had been there for 25 years and was creating her own AI company called Bast AI. If anyone has any spare change, I'm telling you, that is the next big thing if you want to invest. And we had a conversation about Jessica, and she shared what she was doing to build her AI company. And it was based on the idea of compassionate AI. This is someone who has studied archaeology and ontology, the study of language and how and why we relate to each other, and what makes conversations organic. And I just thought that this was an amazing, amazing woman who was building something different. And she even offered to build something for our colon cancer nonprofit as a pro bono project. And so I was really impressed with Beth, and I came home, and about 2 weeks after I met her, I get a download. And I know immediately that it's a download for Beth. And I seem to get them first thing in the morning, around 5 in the morning. It always seems to be the time that I get information from Jessica. I've gotten sacred herbs and healing stones, and I've gotten all sorts of things. And luckily I keep my phone by the bed so that I can jot down what I'm getting from Jessica. But, and I have to look at my phone to share this, and I happened to get it on 11/11 as well. But the message I got was, the essence of your work is the elegant solution of applying sacred geometry, and more specifically the Fibonacci, the golden ratio, to the expanding layers of communication that all begin with a single question. That's what I got from Jessica. And I had no idea what any of it meant. So I texted Beth as soon as it was a decent hour in Denver, and I looked up the Fibonacci and the golden ratio, and I found out that it's basically God's signature in everything. It's in a sunflower, it's in a nautilus, it's in the universe, it's in an acorn, it's in everything, including financial systems and art and music and everything else. And so I texted Beth to find out if this was something that meant anything to her. And her immediate response to this was, Susie, when you were at my house, did you happen to go into my home office? And I said, no, we just had coffee in your kitchen. Why? And she said, because this has been my North Star for the last 10 years as I was building my company, the Fibonacci. So this was another amazing connection that Jessica was making for someone else. Now, this is a more recent wink that I wanted to share with you, and something that didn't make it into the book because it only just happened, and there are winks happening every single day. So I think that there's going to be another version here as I get more and more stories out. But I saw this just a couple of weeks before the book was released, and I know now just to take a picture of whatever it is and look it up. It was Proverb 8:11. Which is, for wisdom is better than rubies, and all the things that may be desired are not to be compared with it. I thought that was a lovely sentiment. I don't know what to do with it, but I just filed it away and decided that it was a nice thought. So once the book is out, I reach out to one of the gals that was a mentor to Jessica. Her name was Austin, and this is Jessica holding her baby. And she was a colon cancer survivor, stage 3, that was up in Washington, D.C., and somebody that we were encouraged to kind of buddy up with. So Jessica had somebody closer to her age going through the same thing. And what was incredible was after surviving stage 3 colon cancer, all of the chemo, all of the radiation, Austin was able to have this beautiful baby girl, Emerson, who's now 8 years old. And what was really, really incredible was that when I reached out to her, and I hadn't communicated with her in years. As I said, this baby is now 8 years old. She said, "Congratulations, this is wonderful." And I said, "How's the family?" And she said, "The girls are great." I said, "Girls?" And apparently not only did she have Emerson, but she had a second baby girl. And I said, "Oh my God, that's amazing. Send me a picture." She sends me a picture of her 2 girls, and the shirt that they're wearing has the same verse, Proverb 8:11. For they are more precious than rubies and anything that might be compared to it. These babies were miracles for Austin. So I thought that was another beautiful connection. And I shared this with a friend of mine who recently moved out of the country. And she responded, "How amazing that you are getting this scripture the way that you're getting it." And she said, "This verse was also a song that I sang to my mother when she was in hospice and transitioning." And so it had particular meaning for her as well. And she said, "It's just incredible that you see things the way that you do, because it just shows you how much God loves you." And I said, "You mean like this?" So there was no mistaking that was the message. Now, I know a lot of people want to know, how does it work? I wish I knew. I have no idea. But a lot of people will tell you, especially people in the academic world that study this, that it's a lot like tuning a radio. It's a lot like tuning a frequency and just recognizing that you need to kind of clear the static and be patient and listen. But what we do know about after-death communication is that it's incredibly helpful for healing. It's helped people find comfort and confirmation and know that their loved ones are very much still with them. Now, I know those of us who feel after-death communication might feel like it's a little bit crazy, but you would be maybe surprised to know this statistic is actually higher than I put on the slide. There was a more recent study that showed 98.6% of people actually experience signs and symbols from their messages from their loved ones. And to back it up, there's a lot of academic research going on all over the world, including right here in our backyard at the University of Virginia Department of Perceptual Studies, and all over the globe, that are confirming after-death communication as a viable sort of field of study. And I think this is a really helpful thing to remember. I really like Dr. Robert Lanza's view of biocentrism, because his position is that the death of consciousness only exists as a thought because people identify themselves with a body. If a body receives consciousness the same way a cable box receives satellite signals, then of course consciousness doesn't end at death. So I think that's a wonderful thing to remember. And I think if we're looking for ways to connect with our loved ones, we want to start paying attention. We want to start listening. We want to keep a journal. We want to look for things that are symbolic and meaningful just for you and the person that you're trying to connect with. You want to trust your intuition, and you want to look at things. I would just challenge you to look at things in a different way, to have a different worldview. And here's an example. I think we're all familiar with this image. It's an iconic landmark, state and national park, but you may not know that there's another view to this. And if you're not thinking about looking at things differently, then you may not get those messages that are designed for you. So what I've learned, just to wrap up, is this is the message I get most of all. I get this message more than anything, that we're all one and that it's all love. And of course, I've already come to the conclusion that love never dies, and neither do we. If anybody thinks of this analogy, it's a great way to explain death to a child. I don't know how many people were traumatized by Frosty when he melted in the greenhouse. But I would suggest to all of you that we're all Christmas snow. We're all Christmas snow, and there's no end. It's just a different form. And as Jessica said, it's just like walking from one room to another through a doorway. And I can tell you what we're not taking. We're not taking any of our stuff with us. That's not the way it works. The only thing that we take with us is the love and kindness that we show to others. Now, one of the biggest questions I had was whether or not Jessica would be there for me when I transitioned. And I think she makes sure to tell me that she will be, because she'll be seeing me. She wants me to know that she's forever, as all of us are. Our spirit is eternal. And one of the things I was less crazy about this message was, see you soon. Because I don't know what that means, since linear time is not the same in the other realm. But for sure, I am looking forward to seeing Jessica when I do transition. And just as a final note, I would say that this is a very personal experience. I think all of us have experiences and stories that we can share. And if anyone has an exceptional story or wink that they'd like to share, as I said, I feel like the second book is already coming together because a lot of people have reached out to me to share their own experiences. So if anybody would like to share or get in touch with me, I can make sure you have my information. And I'll have books as well. If anyone would like to read more. These are just some of the top line stories. There's so many others. So I appreciate your time, and thank you for letting me present the program today.
You don't get to leave so early.
Q, is there any
People might
questions?
ask you questions.
Yeah, if there's any questions, sorry.
If anybody has any questions, I have a microphone over here.
I'll stop sharing.
Okay.
If anybody online would like to ask any questions, put your electronic hand up so I can see it.
Hi.
Hi, Susan. I've experienced some similar transitions of close ones, wife, son, daughter, parents. Have you got communications from any of those? I assume that you've experienced transitions from other people, other souls. And in particular, have you seen any angels? Like in my case, I see angels.
Wow.
Or the moon, full moon cycles especially.
Interesting. No, I have not seen angels, but I would love to hear your experience with that. I have had other signs from other loved ones that have transitioned, primarily my parents. And those have come mostly through very lucid dreams. And they were very much what are characterized as the visitation dreams that you really can't question because you have such recall and memory, and they're vivid, and they stick with you, not like other dreams that you forget when you wake up. But I would love to hear more about the angels too.
So you feel you should have had those visions and closer ties with Jessica like you had with your parents, but you still haven't experienced?
Well, I have experienced Jessica through dreams as well, but dreams were really the only way that I had experienced other folks who had transitioned before Jessica did. That was just sort of the one way that I was seeing loved ones who had transitioned.
Do you think you have an innate ability that others don't?
I think everyone has the same ability. I think I would suggest, in what I sort of referenced here, just being open to possibilities. And I think grief is a very heavy emotion. And when I help other parents that are moving through that after a loss of a child, I'll frequently tell them that if they can just get to a place where that grief is just a little bit lighter and realize that our children want the same for us as we would want for them, if we were in heaven looking down for them, we would want them to find love and joy and connection.
Susan, have you had, I think everybody obviously has had the occasion to lose loved ones. It's always, well, grief-laden and so forth. Mm-hmm. And in many instances there are, was it the 90-some%, was that percentage of post-mortem communications, or was that?
That was a study out of the UK that was fairly recent, and it showed 98.6 of the folks that were part of this clinical study after post grief
Right.
experienced communication from their loved ones. Yeah, some form of communication.
Well, I would think that would be right.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and they come in a great variety. You've done a wonderful program with license plates and
I'll be the crazy license plate.
and T-shirts and so forth. But I think that they can come in any kind of way.
Absolutely.
Like coming through Lauren here.
Yep.
And you all did not know each other.
Never.
Nor did you, Lauren. You did not know Jessica either, did you?
Right, and you know, I was coming to support. I didn't know that I was going to be mentioned. So
Sorry.
So I can say that I'm an intuitive empath. There's nothing special about me. You do it through your heart chakra. It comes in through the right side. Jessica was actually sitting over there, and they bring a lot of humor. I have found when you would put your feet on the floor. That was funny.
You want
to
to come
her.
over here and talk in the mic?
No,
Okay.
And then at that point she came over here.
Right.
So, this has been like a 20-year path for me. So maybe I should do a book or a talk or something like that.
But
Absolutely.
I haven't done it.
This has also opened up a pathway for you. Am I correct in that?
When children have passed, I could not block it out anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And as Susie said, like, when I felt the bond between them, I
Right.
had to say something.
Right.
So this has been a long process for me also. Susie's been very supportive. So this just tells me by coming here that maybe I should help other people, that there's nothing special about me. I'm just, my heart chakra is just completely, and I don't know,
Blown wide open.
to a fault. So,
But I remember you saying that nothing like that really had ever happened, except you'd had one other experience before Jessica that you felt similar.
I'd had stuff over the years, but I had never had where the child had passed over and come to me. I was blocking everything out.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we had connections. A friend of mine is good friends with, it was a lot, I realized why it happened.
Yeah, she knew of Jessica but didn't know her. Yeah,
My friend's daughter was good friends. It was very interesting why it came to me, I think.
and she's gone on to help lots of other people. She's being very modest. There were other children in our colon cancer group that passed away. And I remember one little boy, Jaden, who was 11, and he died telling his grandmother all he wanted was to have his first kiss. And Lauren called me the day that he died and got immediate communication from Jaden,
Wow.
which was incredible.
And what you find is you find their personality. So my understanding is, he's so tall, so I'd ask, was he not tall? So I'm able to put it all together. It's through the feelings.
And he was shorter than his little brother, so that was
And then he's like, he can get all the candy he wants, so they don't lose their personality.
Yeah.
I personally don't understand all this myself, but I'm now compelled to help. So it's been a real growth thing for me. So I think it was all meant to happen.
And Susan, you've become active in IONS and so forth?
Yes, I
IONS as
IONS,
opposed to
near-death
Institute.
studies, which
Right.
was, which has been wonderful. I went to my first conference just a few weeks ago in Chicago, and it was hilarious because they're all experiencers, and I got to go up to people just randomly and say, "So how did you die?" But I'll be helping them next year put the programs together with the speakers and the panels, and I'm excited to be on the committee for next year. But it all started because I originally went to see Dr. Jim Tucker years before Jessica got sick, because there were past life memories, and both you and Carol were part of that as well, that related to the Holocaust and my family line, and all of that connection and the possible connection to a soul group with Jessica and reincarnation. It was just all really an amazing journey, and I talk about that in there as well. So it started years before Jessica even got sick. And then Dr. Bruce Grayson, of course, who is at the Department of Perceptual Studies as well.
Right. But Jessica's the one that blew the lid off it for you.
Yep, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I just had some questions about sort of past life questions before all of this happened with Jessica.
Well, I would like, when you, on the way home today, if you see any license plates that confirm her presence here today, which I feel very strongly,
Yeah. Well,
I'd like you to share it with the group.
Yeah, it's funny. I shared with my friend Ann, who's here to support today. Thanks, Ann. I shared with her that you always have that little doubting Thomas on your shoulder, and as I've pivoted to put more time and energy into sharing these stories and messages because I want to bring hope to people, I had the, of course, question in my mind: am I on the right path? And I asked Jessica for a sign, and this was just the day before yesterday, and the message that I saw on a license plate was "Live my fate."
This what?
Live my fate.
Wow.
So I think I'm on the right path.
I'm sure you're on the right path. So, anybody else?
Yeah, me. Again. This is,
Put the point down for you, Deb.
thanks. I thought of this when the fellow asked if we all have these kind of connections, and you said, yes, we do. My favorite story of all time, and it will be forever and forever and forever, was written in Reader's Digest some 50 some odd years ago. I was visiting my grandparents. I was a teenager. They loved Reader's Digest. And books have a tendency to open up to the pages I need to read.
Yep.
This story was written by a woman who had an infant and a toddler at home. And one day she saw the toddler walking toward the bedroom of the infant, and she decided to follow very quietly to see what was up. And the toddler walked into, have I told you guys this story before?
It's a great story, tell it.
Oh. And the toddler walked into the bedroom, pressed his face against the crib, and said, will you please tell me what God looks like? I'm beginning to forget.
Oh.
We all come in with it.
Yeah.
And we are educated, family conditioned, religioned, to think it's not here, to doubt it, to mistrust it. I never let go of it. In fact, I hid it in order to protect it. So no one could tell me it was stupid.
Not available to take
I had a
your
little white light in the
Please leave
middle
a
of my
message
chest
after
that
the
every
tone.
day it said,
Press the pound
it doesn't
key
have
to
to
end
be this way.
recording.
It doesn't have to be
Good
this way.
morning, this is Judy Hart.
When I
I'm
got out
sorry I
of
missed your
college,
call and I forgot the button.
I sat and got
But
out
I'm
on
at
my
home
own.
and I'm just fine.
I sat down
was on a
quiet
Zoom
one
call.
day and I went to the white
much.
spot and I said, if it doesn't have to be
Have a
this
good day.
way, what way can it be? And you just flow into a path of learning your own skills and what you can connect to. There is information and answers to all this stuff. No one can take that connection away from you. The only thing that can happen to it is it gets cluttered over and over and over and over with disbelief and doubt. But it's still there. No one can disconnect it. I'll shut up.
No, I think that's absolutely right. And I think that, one of the most confusing things when we're in this incarnation is to wonder why we have to forget who we really are. And I think part of
Hi,
that is
this is
just
Judy
coming
Hart.
back
I'm sorry
and
I just missed your
remembering that
call.
this
I was
only-
on a
this
Zoom
is about
program,
remembering
but I'm home
what
and I'm
we were made
fine.
to forget
Thank you
when we
for
came
checking
in.
on.
All right, thank you. Have a great day, okay?
You too. Bye-bye.
Anything else?
Judy Hart online.
Judy Hart online, were you trying to ask a question?
No. Mm-mm.
All right, thanks.
Well,
Thank you.
well, it reminds me of the wise saying, there are more things in heaven and earth than are dreamt of in your philosophy. That was a wonderful presentation. We have been so blessed through the years, and no less so today.
I'm sorry, I have to stop you, because this
Oh.
is what I got yesterday.
Oh, well, come on up and, what is it?
Read it, read it.
There are more things in heaven and earth than are dreamt of in your philosophy.
Yep,
And this came through yesterday.
yep, yep.
So I've just channeled Jessica's message. Wow. As if
You
we,
wanted a sign, you got
I'm
it.
sorry?
You wanted a sign that she was here today.
Yeah. That's so cool.